My sister accused my husband of having an affair, and my parents believed her. 2 years later, her fiance exposed her lies and cheating. It's difficult to know where to begin, but I feel compelled to get this off my chest and maybe find some clarity. I apologize if this comes across as rambling. There's so much to unpack. Hopefully you can point me in the right direction because I'm at a loss. I'm 30 years old and have been married to the love of my life, Jake, who is 34 for 8 beautiful years. We have two lovely children, a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Life was very close to perfect. We had a comfortable home, a consistent schedule, and a profound bond that I believed was unbreakable. Our days were filled with the normal ups and downs of family life. Then everything changed 2 years ago, thanks to my older sister, Lily. Lily, also 34, began on a similar path to mine, but our lives have taken completely different twists, to put it mildly. Her relationship history has been fraught with difficulties. She had been alone for a long time, and there was a very good reason for it. As much as it pains me to admit it, Lily is a bit of a red flag in terms of relationships. Her actions can only be described as those of a neurotic narcissist. She has a history of destroying her relationships, frequently driving people away with her unstable and deceptive behavior. Lily's relationships always seem to start out well, but they never last. She has a habit of becoming very intense too quickly, and then things begin to unravel. I've seen it happen several times. She'll meet someone, they'll begin dating, and then she'll start picking fights over little matters or become so possessive that the guy feels suffocated. Soon enough it's over, and she's left wondering why she can't find someone who will stick around. It's difficult to witness, especially since Lily frequently takes her emotions out on me. She would come over to my apartment and complain about not being able to find a man like Jake. There was clearly a great deal of resentment. She'd say things like, I tried not to take offense, knowing she was in a horrible place, but it was hard not to feel like her words were aimed at me. Despite everything, I still loved my sister. I'd always hoped she'd find the man of her dreams and be happy. I even tried to set her up with Jake's friend once, thinking they'd make a wonderful match, but Lily's unusual and unsettling behavior quickly put a stop to that notion. She was so severe and dominating that I recognized it wasn't worth jeopardizing our friendship. Despite all of this, I remained hopeful that Lily would finally find happiness. Unfortunately, it was clear that Lily did not feel the same way about me. Jake and I had a big family cookout at our parents' house 2 years ago to celebrate our sixth wedding anniversary. It had been a while since the entire family had gotten together, so everyone was having a great time. Our children were playing with their relatives, and the air was full of laughter and happiness. It was one of those rare moments when everything seemed perfect, and I was surrounded by the people I cared about the most. As the evening progressed, Lily took me aside. At first I assumed she was going to make me a heartfelt anniversary wish. She complimented me and I thanked her. Shocked at her genuine tone, I asked her what she'd been up to lately, especially since I knew she had a new boyfriend. But instead of the pleasant conversation I expected, Lily's tone shifted. She gazed at me with peculiar intensity, and the next words she spoke caught me completely off guard. She stated that after Jake and I married, they secretly had an affair for a period. At first I thought it was a weird joke and chuckled, but Lily was dead serious. She claimed that after the wedding Jake continued texting her, and what began as benign getting to know you exchanges quickly evolved into intense emotional conversations. According to Lily, Jake told her that he and I were constantly fighting and bickering about minor issues. She claimed he asked if they could meet, which is when the affair allegedly began. Her statements made me feel ill. I couldn't believe Jake, who had always been committed to me and our family, would be unfaithful. Lily explained that she had kept this a secret all along, but could no longer pretend. The way she delivered it so quietly and confidently shook me to my core more than the actual news. I briefly considered all of the possible options. Did Jake actually cheat on me and with my own sister? Were we supposed to be separated now? What about the kids? It took me a while to process my thoughts, but then I asked Lily if she had any proof. I knew Jake couldn't get away with lying. That's when Lily faltered. She said she had a lot of evidence, but as her sister, I should believe her with or without it. That's when I realized Lily was lying. She could trick Mom and Dad, but I had been watching her for years. I could immediately detect when she was lying. She burst into tears when she realized I was onto her. Then came her lecture, which included comments like, "I can't believe you don't trust me, and I told you this for your own good." Lily then went on to tell our parents the same story. Soon all of our friends and family surrounded us, and Lily began shouting at Jake about how he had cheated on me with her. She even alleged that despite her refusal to participate, he blackmailed her. My husband was just as perplexed as I was. At first, he assumed this was an unfunny joke. However, when Lily began screaming in front of everyone, the situation became quite serious. I hoped my folks would assist me with damage control. After all, even if Lily's narrative were accurate, I would have been crushed. To my amazement, my parents sided with Lily without regard for our circumstances. Dad screamed at Jake, accusing him of playing with Lily's feelings. I felt abandoned. My own sister had confessed to me that she had an affair with my husband of 6 years, even though I knew that wasn't true. No wife enjoys hearing this kind of thing. Furthermore, if her narrative were true, my father was more concerned with Lily's feelings than my own as a wife and mother who would have lost her husband. When we got home that day, Jake and I talked about everything. I trusted my husband and knew he would never betray me. Before you think I'm gullible, let me warn you that Lily has a history of lying. She has previously wrecked countless relationships with petty lies. For example, Jake's friend ended their relationship because she accused him of cheating on her out of nowhere. She would set her own belongings around the apartment and then ask him if he had brought any other girls over. This would lead to screaming matches, and when he was exhausted, Mom would tell him it was just a test. The situation with us simply confirmed this was a trend for Lily. The next few days were the worst of my life. My parents refused to hear our side of the story, preferring to trust Lily's version without any evidence. Our previously close-knit family was broken. Jake, I found ourselves alone, and the atmosphere at family gatherings grew unpleasant. My parents treated me with distrust while Jake was completely ignored. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to delight in the turmoil she had caused. She played the victim, taking the attention and pity of everyone around her. It was as if she relished witnessing the devastation she had inflicted on my life. The more I attempted to defend myself and Jake, the more she distorted the story to portray us as monsters. I attempted to contact my parents to explain that there was no proof of Lily's assertions, but it was ineffective. They had made up their minds, and their commitment to Lily was solid. Mom even accused me of being in denial and choosing Jake over my own sister, which shattered my heart. I couldn't comprehend how they could so easily abandon me, how they could blindly believe Lily's falsehoods. Eventually, the tension reached its breaking point. Jake and I made the difficult decision to detach ourselves from my family for our own mental health and the sake of our children's well-being. It was a difficult decision, but we couldn't keep living in the shadow of such a painful falsehood. This eventually became our new normal. As I mentioned, it was difficult, but not impossible. I recognized that I didn't need my parents' approval for everything in my life. But just when I thought the drama was over, something happened to shake things up again. I came across a post on Facebook unexpectedly. Lily had become engaged. She had shared a series of photos with her new fiancé, a man named Mark, along with a lengthy heartfelt caption about how she had met the love of her life. She told how Mark had entered her life at what she believed was the most difficult time she had ever experienced, a time of pain and betrayal. Ironic, right? Reading those sentences caused my stomach to churn. The hypocrisy was enraging. Lily had portrayed herself as a victim employing the same lies she had used to elicit compassion and admiration from our extended family and friends. As I browsed through the comments, I noticed that many of our family members who had largely supported her during the turmoil were praising her and extending their support. Some even made snide, passive-aggressive comments directly at me, such as "good for you for getting past that toxicity, you don't need that in your life." It was infuriating. These people had no idea what had transpired, yet they were ready to congratulate Lily on her alleged courage and tenacity. I felt a similar sense of betrayal not only from Lily, but from the entire family, who had decided to believe her falsehoods without questioning them. It felt as if they had completely eliminated me from their lives while continuing to support someone who had only caused grief and destruction. What concerned me even more was Lily's engagement to a man who had no idea what kind of person she was. I couldn't help but feel sad for Mark, knowing he was being deceived by the same lies that had destroyed my family. I wondered whether Lily had ever told him the truth about what she had done, or if she had continued to weave her web of deception to trap him as well. I was tempted to reach out to Mark and warn him about Lily's true personality, but I immediately realized that it wasn't my place to meddle in their relationship. Mark would have to discover the truth on his own, just like I did. Still, I couldn't ignore the sense of dread that came with knowing Lily was once again manipulating those around her for her personal gain. In the days that followed, I tried to get the news of Lily's engagement out of my mind, but it was difficult. Suddenly, I began to notice a series of missed calls from an unknown number. I ignored it at first because I assumed it was spam, but the calls kept coming. I didn't have time to pick up because I was so busy with work and the kids. Finally, during a break at work, I decided to respond. On the other end of the line, I was welcomed by a screaming Lily. She hurled every insult and slur she could think of at me. It was like a torrent of rage, unfiltered and untamed. I tried to ask her what was going on, but she refused to let me speak. After what seemed like an eternity of listening to her rant, I was finally able to convince her to pause long enough to explain what had happened and why she was so angry. There was a little hush on the other end before she screamed, "How could you claim to be innocent after what you've done?" Before I could react, she hung up. I was left in a trance, trying to make sense of what had just occurred. My mind was spinning with options, but none made sense. What could I have done to make Lily so angry? I had stayed out of her life, given her the privacy she clearly desired, and done nothing to provoke her. I could only think of one person who might have some insight into this situation: my Uncle Tom. He was one of the few family members I still communicated with, and he was always a voice of reason in the midst of the insanity. I called him, thinking he could shed some light on the situation. Uncle Tom did not disappoint. When I recounted what had transpired, he revealed what Lily had cleverly left out. Apparently her fiancé Mark had called off the engagement. The reason? He had discovered the alleged affair between Lily and Jake through family rumors. Mark, being the wonderful guy he was, had been looking into a disagreement he had spotted between Lily and me. When Mark found out about the affair, he was naturally outraged. But the trouble was, he didn't realize it was all a lie, a fiction Lily had cooked up to seek attention and sympathy. Things took an even more dramatic turn just before the engagement was called off. Mark had sensed that something was wrong with their relationship. Lily's unpredictable conduct had caused concerns for him, and he couldn't escape the suspicion that there was more to the story. Motivated by his suspicions, Mark decided to check Lily's phone. What he discovered shocked everyone. Lily had been cheating on him. She had been meeting up with a guy she met on a dating app, and their interactions weren't just casual chatter. Mark, who was wealthy and seemed ideal in Lily's eyes, was someone she refused to lose. Lily had no choice but to come clean. She admitted to Mark that there was no affair with Jake, that the entire thing had been made up. But rather than saving her relationship, her confession backfired. She did not deny having discussions with the guy on the dating app. After Mark called off the engagement, Lily's life began to unravel. Her lies were now public knowledge, and those who had previously backed her began to distance themselves. The people who had once believed her story about Jake and me now questioned everything. Their caustic remarks and supportive letters faded when they discovered the extent of Lily's lies. My parents, who had so easily sided with her 2 years ago, were left stunned by the truth. Despite the remorse and sorrow I feel for my sister, I know that the best thing for my family right now is to stay away from all this toxic drama. Update: it's been months since I last spoke to Lily, and I have to say things have evolved in ways I never could have anticipated. The aftermath of everything, her lies, the family's betrayal, the broken trust, has left me in a place of reflection. Honestly, I didn't think I could feel more betrayed, but I was wrong. It's not just the lies, but the layers of manipulation, the deceit woven so carefully, that really shook me to my core. Jake and I, after everything that happened, have tried to find peace in the chaos. Our children have been a blessing, grounding us in ways nothing else could. They have no idea about the storm that's raged in our family over the last 2 years. And as much as I want to protect them from it, I also know that there will come a time when they'll have questions. They'll learn about the brokenness, and they'll learn that family isn't always what it seems. But Jake and we've come out stronger. I see it in the little moments, the way he holds me when I'm frustrated, the way we can communicate silently across a room, the way we've both learned to prioritize each other despite everything that's tried to pull us apart. I don't know how we made it through, but we did. It took months for me to finally stop obsessing over what had happened. I used to wonder why my family had chosen to believe Lily even without evidence, without a shred of truth. How could they have sided with her so quickly? I've never been the type of person who holds grudges, but the way they abandoned me in favor of her was more painful than any betrayal I could have imagined. It wasn't just that they believed her lies, it was that they never gave me the chance to explain, to defend myself, to show them the truth. It was as if in their eyes I was the villain and she was the victim. It wasn't just my parents either. Our entire extended family had taken her side, offering their support, sending cards, comforting her as though she were the one whose life had been shattered. I had hoped that when the truth came out they would apologize, that they would come to me and acknowledge the hurt they had caused. But instead they all quietly distanced themselves, like a family of puppets tangled in Lily's strings, too afraid to confront the reality of what they had done. It was as if no one wanted to admit how wrong they had been. And the worst part, none of them ever came to me with any questions. Not a single person reached out to ask me about the situation. Not one of them asked for my side of the story. It was as if I had been erased, as if I never existed in the narrative they had built around Lily. That was perhaps the most painful part of all the silence. But then came the day that everything changed. It was a Sunday afternoon when I got a call from my Uncle Tom. I hadn't heard from him in months. To be honest, I didn't expect much from him either. Like the rest of the family, he had believed Lily's lies without question. I wasn't sure if he was reaching out because he wanted to make amends or if he was just another voice in the crowd. I wasn't prepared for what I would hear. "Hey, kid," his voice was heavy with something I couldn't place. "I need to talk to you about something." I didn't know what to expect, but I could hear the tension in his voice. "What's going on, Uncle?" "I'm not proud of this," he said, his voice shaking a little. "But I owe you an apology. We all do, your parents, your and everyone. We were wrong, and I need you to know that I've learned the truth." I froze. I didn't want to get my hopes up. "You mean about Lily?" I asked, unsure if I could trust myself to speak any more. "Yeah," he said quietly. It's all coming to light now. Mark called off the engagement. Turns out everything Lily said, everything she accused Jake of, was a lie. The air around me seemed to still, as though the entire world had paused for a moment. I wanted to scream, to shout, to let out all the anger and hurt that had built up inside me. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded, even though Uncle Tom couldn't see me. You know about Mark and the dating app, right? Uncle Tom continued. He found out. He found all the evidence, the messages, the dates, and when he confronted her, she admitted to everything. But here's the kicker: she never confessed the truth about Jake. She doubled down on the lies, and now her life's falling apart. Mark ended it, and now the rest of the family is starting to question everything. I didn't know whether to feel relief or rage. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, and suddenly everything I'd feared, everything I'd felt was real, was being validated. But at the same time I couldn't help but feel betrayed once again, not just by Lily, but by everyone else who had so easily believed her. Uncle Tom's voice softened. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. I should have never doubted you. You're my niece, and I love you. I can't speak for everyone else, but I want to make things right. I can't undo the damage that's been done, but I want you to know that I see the truth now. I appreciate you saying that, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. But you have no idea how much it hurt to feel like I was invisible to all of you, to have no one even ask me what really happened. I know, Uncle Tom said quietly, and that's on me too. I should have fought harder for you. I failed you, kid, and for that I'm truly sorry. I didn't know what to say, but it felt like the first breath of fresh air I'd had in months. For the first time since all this began, I felt like someone, anyone, cared. For the first time, someone was acknowledging the pain I'd gone through. I'm trying to move on, I said softly. But it's hard, you know. I want to forgive, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone in this family again. Uncle Tom didn't have an answer for that. There wasn't one, but he didn't need to. I knew that the road ahead was going to be long. Trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. But at least now there was a crack in the wall that had surrounded me. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew that I was no longer alone in this battle. Over the next few weeks things slowly began to change. Uncle Tom kept his word. He spoke to my parents, to the rest of the family, and helped them see the truth. Some were more receptive than others, but for the first time they began to question Lily's story. They started to piece things together, realizing how easily they had been manipulated. It was slow progress, and it wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was something. My parents, though hesitant, began to reach out. At first it was awkward and filled with guilt. My mother apologized, but it felt insincere, like she was apologizing more because she had to, not because she truly understood the extent of her mistake. But still it was a start. As for Lily, well, she disappeared for a while. After her engagement fell apart and her lies were exposed, she withdrew from everyone. I'm not sure where she went, but I heard through the grapevine that she had been staying with a few of her old friends, trying to put the pieces of her life back together. The sad thing is, I don't feel sorry for her. I don't know if I ever will. The person I once called my sister is gone, replaced by someone I don't recognize. Jake and I are still rebuilding. There are scars, of course, but we are stronger for it. We've become a team in ways I never expected. There's a new sense of trust between us, and understanding that no matter what happens we will face it together. It's not perfect, but it's real. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time I feel like I have control of my own life again. I'm not a victim of Lily's lies, and I'm not bound by the expectations of my family. I've reclaimed my story, and that's something no one can take from me. For now, that's enough.